But I mastered that style. It's like the 5 deadly venoms. So all he had to do was get next to a nigga like that, and he could destroy him.
Believe in that, for real. We plan to take the same strategy we use with Death Row West, mind over matter, taking all our weaknesses and making it into our strength. That all these people talk about an East Coast, West Coast war, they like the Judas was to Jesus. They only here to cause confusion. We here to bring money and to bring change. They here to cause confusion. All these weak rappers, Nas, all these suckers, they battling off of East and West like this is a game. This ain't no game. If this was chess, we'd be yelling checkmate 3 years ago, because we've been beat these. It's not a game.
What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. I return as EGOVELI Outlaw Immortal West Side. You see, you wouldn't ask why the rose that grew from the concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we will all celebrate his tenacity. We will all love his will to reach the sun. Well, we are the roses. This is the concrete, and these are my damaged petals. Don't ask me why. Let me get into it. Now, y'all been asking for that work for a minute. Let me just jump right into it. Now, I'm thinking about this Mayweather Berto, and I'm starting to notice a lot of double standards with this whole situation. Now, there's going to be some bickering and complaints. I know this video is going to ruffle some feathers. When you're at this level, when you've been doing this too long, you know what to expect. You know, like I already know there's going to be some Caitlins and they're going to leave comments, but here's what you won't do. The people, the detractors, they're not going to prove what I'm saying wrong. You're not going to see many intelligent. The people who have stuff to say, they'll, oh, you're just a flow-mo, you're just a dick rider, you're just trying to defend Mayweather Berto. Now, for the record, I've given criticism to Mayweather Berto. I don't think it should be on pay-per-view. It, in my opinion, is not the best fight. If you had a bunch of opponents on the table for Mayweather, I wouldn't have picked Berto. However, this video is not to quote-unquote defend Mayweather Berto, it's to expose the double standards. Now, if you don't like Mayweather Berto for the reasons that some of you guys are saying, that would be fine and dandy. However, as I show you in this video, that is not the case. The reason that many people, and don't get me wrong, there's even Mayweather fans that don't really like this, but I'm not talking to them right now. I'm talking to the detractors. And the Pulse, there's a lot of people who fit into this category. They want to see Mayweather lose. Any opportunity to condemn him, to shit on him, you're all for it. It's like you're waiting for it. And I can tell by the things you say. A lot of you don't even know shit about boxing, and the comments you say sound asinine and crazy. And more importantly, there's a clear-cut double standard in this sport of boxing where you say this is your cause and this is your reason, and this rule only applies to fighters that you don't like. If it's a fighter you like, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to continue to show you that in this video. Now, there's a lot of bad feedback, bad press about this fight. Again, this is not the best fight. I'm making that clear, abundantly clear. I don't know how much clearer I can make. Mayweather versus Berto is not the ultimate, the mother of all fights. I'm telling you that from the horse's mouth. However, there is a double standard, and the fight is actually being shitted on to a different degree, and I'm going to kind of show you what I'm talking about in this video. It's not as bad as some people are making it. Either you want to see it or you don't want to see it. You're going to stream it or you're going to not stream it. But Mayweather happens to be in the hot seat, in the driver's seat. He's the highest paid athlete. Therefore, he's under the microscope. Every decision he makes, every move, you got a throng of haters, and he has some supporters, and that's what we're experiencing right here. In fact, I know this to be true because Victor Postol and Lucas Matisse, which I think is a good fight, that's a good, even fight, that press conference happened. I haven't heard anything bad about that fight. It's for a vacant belt, and everyone wants to see it. Yet, that happened the same day as Mayweather Berto in the same city. They both happened in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. And nobody is talking about it. You go to YouTube channels, nobody was really covering, like unless they got coverage live from the event, there's no one making review videos and talking about it. But people are talking about Mayweather Berto. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, Mayweather Berto, I'm just reading comments and stuff. And people were like, oh, I lost respect for Floyd for picking Berto. No, you didn't, because some of y'all are full of shit. You didn't respect the man from the get-go, from the jump. you're just saying that, like, oh, I lost respect. You know what I mean? Because people are leaving stupid comments like, even if he goes out on the Berto fight, right? People are like, oh, his legacy is ruined. How is your legacy ruined off of one fight? And it's not even necessarily a guaranteed loss. They're not even talking about like, oh, if he loses to Berto, his legacy is ruined. They're saying for fighting him, his legacy is ruined. Boycott Mayweather, trying to start movements. Yet you got fighters like Muhammad Ali, Julio Cesar Chavez. They went out on losses. Their careers were finished with losses. So how is your legacy ruined because you chose to fight? Win, lose, or draw because you just chose that person. Like, that's crazy. I can understand someone saying, oh, it's not going out with a bang or whatever, but there's fighters that went out with losses. They got stopped and then retired. Arturo Gatti went out, rest in peace, on a loss. So his legacy is ruined because he went out on a loss. Like, some of y'all sound crazy with these comments that I'm reading. And, oh, I lost respect. No, you didn't lose respect because you never had it to begin with. And I'm just thinking about it. Let's break down. I made this spreadsheet for you. Let's really break it down. People are coming up with all kinds of good fights. And there's nothing wrong with these fights. And I'm not saying Berto is a better fight than any of them. I'm just clearly going through factual information. So take a look at this spreadsheet and we'll go through it. Now, some of y'all are doing too much when it comes to Mayweather. Yes, he's fighting Berto. Yes, it's not the best available. It's not the top 10, but that's my point. For once, he chooses someone who's not in the top 10, and a lot of people, oh, Floyd's boring. He's a runner. He's a coward. They say that no matter what. The one time he chooses to fight someone that's not in the top 10, with a name even, it's not like he fought a Rod Salka or someone in the light division and pulled him up. He's still fighting a guy who's a two-time world champion, former world champion, with a name and at least knockout power bigger than him, right? And Berto is in shape. You look at the promo stuff, he's already in shape. And not every fighter can say that. A lot of these fighters have to go to training camp and stuff. Berto stays pretty fit year round. So people are making this out to be something like it's just the worst mismatch in the history. And again, a lot of these people, it's because they want to see him lose and they don't give Berto much of a chance to beat him. Therefore, they're pissed off and they're just saying reckless stuff. So let's take a look at resume, because people are throwing out all these names that Floyd, he should have fought this guy. He should have fought him. And when I'm thinking about it, the more I think about it, I'm like looking at Floyd's last 6 fights. And then I'm looking at the last 6 fights of the people that others are saying that Floyd needs to fight and they're worthy of the fight, right? And it's no comparison. Floyd has had a much tougher schedule. So go back 6 fights ago. Mayweather was fighting Miguel Cotto. Kell Brook was fighting Carson Jones. Keith Thurman was fighting Diego Chavez. He was undefeated, but who did he beat at that point? He put himself in a mandatory position. He was actually the mandatory for Paulie Malignaggi. Malignaggi passed up that fight to take a money fight with Adrian Broner. See, this is the thing. I know my boxing. So I know and I remember, I have a good memory too. Diego Chavez is a solid fighter, but if you really boil it down, what is Diego Chavez his best win at welterweight? I'll wait. He gave Keith Thurman a run for his money, but he got stopped. He was beating Brandon Rios on my scorecard, but he got disqualified and lost that fight. I thought Timothy Bradley beat him. I thought the draw was bullshit. But either way, it wasn't a victory. It was a draw. And I thought Timothy Bradley clearly won with the messed up eye and headbutt and all that. So you look at it, Diego Chavez, I'm not shitting on him. He's a good boxer. But what's his best win? He was undefeated when Keith Thurman fought him. But who had he beat? Guys from Argentina? What big name had he beat at the time, right? And that's my favorite Keith Thurman fight, FYI. Diego Chavez versus Keith Thurman. I'm just saying he gave him a run for his money, but who did he beat, right? You look at Amir Khan. He fought Danny Garcia, good name, solid competitor, but Danny Garcia was the underdog, and he stopped him in 4 rounds. So you go down that whole list, name one person that you would say tops Miguel Cotto. Carson Jones? Diego Chavez, is he better than Cotto? You look at Danny Garcia, has he accomplished more than Cotto? Like, who's the better Puerto Rican fighter if you had to pick one? Obviously, Cotto, clearly. Let's move on. Robert Guerrero. At the time, he had jumped up 2 weight classes, beat an undefeated Selçuk Aydin. Then he had a war with Berto, beat him, knocked him down. Then he was calling out Mayweather, so he got his opportunity. Floyd was coming out of jail, and he was a mandatory. The fight happened. Meanwhile, Kell Brook was fighting 5 fights ago Sinchenko. Claim to fame, I guess, beating Ricky Hatton. He lost to Paulie Malignaggi, who people say is feather-fisted. Keith Thurman was fighting Jesus Soto Karass, a guy who had not too long ago on the Josecito Canelo undercard been stopped by Marcos Maidana. I think that was Maidana's first fight with Roberto Garcia, and that's who Keith Thurman was fighting. You look at Amir Khan. He came back off of a KO. He had a new trainer. So me, unlike some of y'all, I'm realistic. He brought up a guy from 135 to 140 with no punching power because he had got knocked out. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You got to build your confidence and get into the groove and get your bearings back with a new trainer and get your head right after being knocked out by Danny Garcia. So he fought Carlos Molina. So go down that list. Who is better than Robert Guerrero and had more momentum at that particular time? Then you look at Floyd Mayweather when he fought Canelo. Undefeated. Canelo just beat Austin Trout. Canelo's bigger than Floyd. We've seen Canelo at least have competitive fights. Whether you thought Laura won or Canelo won, they were competitive with each other. And Laura's a top-notch competitor. And he beat him on paper. Then you look at his fight with James Kirkland, spun him around. Floyd Mayweather dominates him. Easy work. And Canelo was undefeated and a champion at that time with names on his resume like Kermit Cintron, Shane Mosley. Even if they're past prime, they were still bigger names. So he had momentum, and he was over 10 years younger. Meanwhile, Kell Brook was fighting Robeles. What? Keith Thurman was fighting Julio Diaz, a career lightweight who had been beat by Amir Khan at that point. He knocked Khan down, but he still lost. Amir Khan had fought Julio Diaz also at a catchweight and got knocked down by him, right? Second fight with Virgil Hunter. Now, who had more momentum than Canelo out of all of those opponents? Julio Diaz, who had been stopped by Kendall Holt, right? Keep going. Marcos Maidana had just beaten Broner, making it his 4th consecutive win. 3 came from KO or TKO. And those were guys like Jesus Soto Karass, Josecito Lopez, and he nearly knocked out Broner. He thrashed him nonetheless, knocked him down 2 times, the first person to defeat and the first person to knock down Broner in his professional career. That's the momentum he had going into the Floyd fight, right? Champion, and he was on a 4-win streak, new trainer, and an improved style. Kell Brook fought Sean Porter, good solid win. I think he won it via split decision. Some people thought he didn't win it that convincingly. I picked Brook to win, and I thought he won, but it wasn't a wash or anything. Then you look at Keith Thurman. He was fighting Leonard Bundu, Olympian, limited European competition, hadn't really beat anybody, Lee Purdy's and guys like that. That's who Keith Thurman was fighting. You look at Amir Khan, Luis Collazo. He had some losses to Berto, Hatton, and his claim to fame was he was coming off the Victor Ortiz win. Victor Ortiz was coming off a broken jaw injury and had been out for 15 months. And then they made the Khan fight. So who had more momentum than Maidana in that given situation? Then Floyd, he had a tough fight with Maidana, rematched Maidana, fought him again. He beat him more convincingly. Meanwhile, Kell Brook was fighting Jojo Dan. Okay, it was a mandatory. He was coming off of a stabbing injury, but it was still Jojo Dan. That's the talent you were fighting. Keith Thurman was fighting Robert Guerrero, who had, at that point, lost to Mayweather, had a war with Berto, had a war with Kamagai, and then Keith Thurman got to him. And he looked good and looked dominant in that fight. Amir Khan fought Devin Alexander. But Devin Alexander, at that point, Amir Khan looked great in that fight. But Devin Alexander was no longer a champion as he lost his belt to Sean Porter. And he had like a rocky kind of performance against Jesus Soto Karass. So he was trying to get back into the groove. Amir Khan shut him out. I had him winning every single round. So, again, who had more momentum than Maidana? Who was a better fighter than Maidana at that point? You know what I mean? You could say, oh, Devin beat Maidana. But at the same time, Maidana had more steam because his first fight with Mayweather should have gave him confidence because he did better than guys like Pacquiao would do with Mayweather. And he gave him a competitive fight. Some people even said it was a draw. So to me, Maidana is still had more going for him than that. You know what I mean? Guerrero, like I said, wars with Bertos, war with Kamagai, and a loss to Mayweather. That was his momentum. What momentum did Jojo Dan have, right? And then last, we had Manny Pacquiao, the fighter of the decade. Who is Kell Brook fighting? Frankie Gavin. Now, he already satisfied his mandatory by challenging Jojo Dan and stopping him. Then he ended up stopping Frankie Gavin. Who is Frankie Gavin? Who is Frankie Gavin beat? Who has he lost to? Leonard Bundu, who Keith Thurman beat. Look at Keith Thurman. Who is he fighting? Luis Collazo, who Khan had recently beat and knocked down 3 times, right? And he had one fight against, Collazo had a fight with the bum and stopped him. And then he fought Keith Thurman, right? This is who Keith Thurman was fighting. Amir Khan, who did he fight? Chris Algieri, coming off a devastating loss to Pacquiao where he was knocked down 6 times in Macau, China, no longer undefeated. He moved up from 144 to 147, and he was a career 140-pounder with no power, and it was his first fight under the training of John David Jackson, brand new trainer, and he gave Khan a run for his money. So when we're talking about schedule, if anybody deserves to have a lighter touch, shouldn't it be Mayweather? Look at this. Look at his schedule. And the whole thing is, a lot of these guys' schedules have been a light touch, minus maybe a few people. And these are the guys that people are saying Mayweather needs to fight, and he's ducking and he's afraid of them. But look who they're fighting, right? In addition to that, all of these guys in their last performance, because we didn't know who Mayweather was going to fight in September. We had no idea. Their last fight, in my opinion, was the ultimate audition. If you know anything about history and Floyd Mayweather, he oftentimes fights guys coming off of their biggest wins or big wins that are getting buzz around the world. Maidana had beat the shit out of Broner, and people were talking about it. They were making Broner memes, and Broner was even in rap songs. Fabulous made a song about how Broner was through the ropes and things like that. That had buzz. People had watched that. That was a good fight, and Maidana looked good in that fight. Victor Ortiz had beat Andre Berto, who was then undefeated, and it was considered a fight of the year, and he knocked him down. They knocked each other down. That was the win he had before he fought Mayweather. Mayweather fought Ricky Hatton, who was undefeated. Mayweather fought Shane Mosley, who had just stopped in his previous fight, a granite chin Antonio Margarito, who people thought Mosley would get stopped by or lose to Antonio Margarito. Canelo had beat Austin Trout, who was considered a southpaw. He was undefeated, and the style that people thought Canelo couldn't box. So they said, oh, he's going to lose to the slick style in Austin Trout, who was also undefeated. It was 2 undefeated fighters in April, and then September he ended up fighting Mayweather. So again, when we're looking at it, who deserves a break? Like whose schedule has warranted that? Who has done more in recent memory? You got a bunch of guys, and like I said, their last fight, their audition tape, look at their performance. None of them were coming off of spectacular performances that everyone was talking about. Kell Brook, he was coming off a good performance, but it was against Frankie Gavin, who is not a world beater. So nobody was really buzzing about that. You look at Keith Thurman, he's coming off of Luis Collazo. I thought he was boxing pretty good, but then that 5th round, you got hurt more than Shane Mosley did when he fought Collazo. You got hurt more than Amir Khan did when he fought Collazo. You got hurt more than Hatton, Berto, all these guys when they fought Collazo, and you're supposed to be one-time, devastating power, the avoided fighter. So it wasn't a good look, the fact that it looked like you were near getting knocked down, possibly stopped by Luis Collazo. Even though he was boxing pretty good, besides that, the fact that you had that major struggle in round 5 kind of hurt your chances. That was your audition. You look at Amir Khan. He got a guy that people thought he was going to absolutely massacre, including myself. Amir Khan has historically done good against boxers. I thought he was going to kill Chris Algieri, and he struggled with him. He even got hurt by him in the first round. And this was a guy coming off of a loss. You wonder why none of these guys got picked. Mayweather, Cotto, all these guys, they're proven. They said the belt doesn't really define them. They're not really tripping off a belt. So none of these guys were coming off of impressive wins to begin with. You look at their audition tape, to me, they all failed. They all failed to generate that mainstream interest. So why not, from my perspective, and I'm going to talk more about the business side of it too, he probably picked Berto like, oh, this is a guy I should beat. Oh, well, you know what I mean? Because no one else is like going to generate interest either, or they didn't do it in their last fight. So fuck it. None of them get it. Let them earn it. Let them do more. And see, this other thing, people keep pointing the finger at the most accomplished. Mayweather's more accomplished resume-wise than all of these guys. Kell Brook, Amir Khan, Keith Thurman. He's done more. None of those guys have a Pacquiao. Some of those guys don't even have a Maidana, Canelo, or a Cotto or Diego Corrales type of name on their resume, right? So it's funny because people keep saying, Floyd, oh, he should dare to be great and fight Gennady Golovkin. But Gennady could fight whoever he wants. Triple G could fight Willie Monroe. People are mad that Mayweather's fighting an 80-1 underdog or 50-1 or whatever. But when Triple G was fighting Willie Monroe, it was all good. And if you look at the dynamic, Mayweather is pushing 40, and a lot of you guys say he's pillow-fisted. So to me, if that's the case, a guy who's slowing down, you guys say he lost his legs, he's pillow-fisted, he's not the same, he's not as fast, he's losing his reflexes, he's getting hit more, right? Then Berto shouldn't be as much of a mismatch, because at least Berto can crack, has some athleticism, speed year-round, stays in shape. But when I look at Triple G, who's younger, 33 years old, when I see a Willie Monroe who doesn't have the big fight experience nor the amateur experience of Triple G, and he has 6 knockouts, how is that not a mismatch, right? And we're talking about a menacing, destructive puncher like Triple G, and people are okay with that, and people praise that. Like, oh, he stopped Willie Monroe. You didn't even know who Willie Monroe was. Now, the only difference with the Triple G that I will admit is Triple G was on free TV versus pay-per-view. But I've already declared I don't think Mayweather Berto should be on pay-per-view. But I'm just saying, if we have a standard, if this is your standard, then shouldn't it be across the board? This is how I feel, not just you pick and choose. So to me, it's just a lot of double standards. People want to pick and choose. It's okay for Kell Brook to have guys like Carson Jones and Sinchenko, Robelis, Frankie Gavin, Jojo Dan. But the moment Mayweather, who I showed you on the template, have fought tougher fights, the moment he takes someone that's not in the top 10, but that's still a former champion with power and bigger than him, that's blasphemous. Keith Thurman could fight Julio Diaz, a career lightweight, and the other people, Jesus Sotocras, people who were considered journeymen. At one point, Jesus Sotocras, I think he had lost like 5 out of his last 7 fights, right? Something like that. And that's okay. So again, to me, you guys make it abundantly clear. A lot of people just want to see Mayweather lose. And if they don't think you have at least a shot to do it, then it's a fight that they don't want to see and they're going to complain about. Again, Berto, I can't stress this enough. It's not the best fight out there. But at this point, I don't even blame Floyd. I'm thinking about, the more I keep thinking about it and hearing what people say in the media, I don't even blame Floyd at this point. He's fulfilling his contract and he's not even getting the credit anyway. You look at his fight with Canelo. First of all, they said he was a bitch and he will never fight Canelo. He fought Canelo, beat him easy work. You had one judge try to rob him, said it was a draw. CJ Ross, bitch ass, she said it was a draw. And then you get other people who just, oh, Canelo was too green. Oh, it was because of the catch weight. They didn't give him credit for it. Same thing with Pacquiao. Said he wouldn't fight Pacquiao. They're like, oh, Cotto 2 is imminent. He's not going to fight him. And then he fights Pacquiao, beats him and reduces him to throwing 81 punches or landing 81 punches. And he has him looking reckless and missing more than... Basically, Pacquiao's offense didn't look as effective as it did against anybody else Pacquiao's fought, right? And he beat him. Then you got people saying, watch it in slow-mo, it's some different shit. Or, oh, it's only because he only had one arm and it was a shoulder injury. So, the more I think about it, I would be like Floyd too. I'd be like, fuck y'all. Why should I take an unnecessary risk when no matter what giant I face, what mountain I climb, people are always going to find something wrong with it? Why not give myself a break from a tough schedule, right? You know what I'm saying? Look at his tough fights. Some people even said Cotto. I remember some people even said, oh, he had a bloody nose, Cotto won. That was a robbery. You know what I'm saying? Every single Floyd fight, if he's spectacular or shows vulnerability, it's always never good enough. You know what I mean? Like I said, there were people at the time that were saying Cotto won that because he bloodied up Floyd's nose. People were saying Maidana was a draw and he lost to Maidana in the first fight. And then the guys he shuts out, like Pacquiao, they say, oh, watch it in slow motion. You'll see another fight. Or Canelo, oh, it's because the catch weight and he was too green. He didn't have enough experience. That was a cherry pick because he was flat-footed. So it's always something. So to be honest, the more I think about it, I don't blame Floyd. Like I say, he's not getting the credit anyway. So might as well do your own thing, make that easy money. And people are ultimately mad because Floyd has mastered the business of boxing. And he's pimping the game when the game normally pimps the fighters, period. You normally see fighters end up on crack and broke and they're not calling shots. Their promoters are robbing them and things like that. And Floyd is taking minimal amount of damage in fight because he has a good defense and he's smart. He's making like 32 million guaranteed, crazy 300 million versus Pacquiao and things like that. And either way, he's not getting credit no matter who he faces. Moving up in 5 different divisions, he gets no credit for that. Meanwhile, guys got like Triple G won a catchweight with Ward, and that's all good. And people accept this and embrace these double standards in the sport of boxing, and then have the audacity to wonder why Floyd doesn't want to entertain them more, or when he's clearly dominating an opponent, not take a stupid gamble by going toe-to-toe for the last minute in the 12th round. Why should he do that when y'all motherfuckers don't appreciate it anyway, right? So the more I think about it, Floyd fighting Berto, again, it's not the best fight, but I don't honestly know if I would blame him or if I would do anything different in the sense of you're not getting the respect. So why not say fuck him, milk the game for what it's worth, and get every red cent you can while you're in this bitch. That's like the way I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Because either way, it's always some clause. He should have fought Pacquiao 5 years ago. Well, he didn't. And people wouldn't have been saying that if Mayweather got knocked out. If Pacquiao knocked him out, they shouldn't have been like, oh, that's because Floyd wasn't in his prime. They would have just been like, damn, you see Floyd getting stretched? And they would have made memes and all types of stuff like that. But the people said boxing was dead because of Floyd. And then you wonder why he's taking a light touch for going out on his last fight. He probably would do more if people showed some level of integrity, journalistic integrity, boxing media, the fans. You know what I mean? He might do some of these things for you guys. Now, here's an analogy too. Here's more of the business side. You look at the music industry. Let's say Eminem, he signed to Interscope and he has a 5-album deal, meaning he has to produce 5 albums under Interscope. Now, if Eminem was interested in starting his own because he has a lot of fame and fan base or whatever, let's say he wanted to start his own music imprint or maybe sign to another record label or even renegotiate a bigger deal for 3 more albums with Interscope. You have the ability. Now, let's say he completed 4 of the 5 albums and he had 1 left. It is not uncommon in the world of music for that person to put out like something that takes minimal amount of work, like a Christmas album or a greatest hits album, because, and you know what I mean, they might throw a couple of new songs on it or songs that were on the shelf that no one's heard or whatever, but that happens a lot. It'd be like, oh, Eminem Curtain Call, the greatest hits, and it has Stan and all of his greatest hits songs on it, and that takes a minimal amount of work, yet it also fulfills and satisfies your contract. Now you can renegotiate or do whatever you have to do, and you've already appeased your contract. They can't say, oh no, it can't be a greatest, unless that was in the contract. They can't say, oh, you can't do a Mariah Carey greatest hits album for the 5th album. You know what I mean? So that's not uncommon practice, business practice in the music industry. So I think that's kind of what Floyd is like. He's like, man, I'm not getting the credit or respect. People are buying the shoulder injury anyway. So fuck it. I'm going to milk the game for what it's worth. I'm going to fight what's considered by most a low-level opposition. Not even low, like, I wouldn't say Berto's low level. It's just most people, I don't think Berto will beat Mayweather. And most people feel that way. Berto is a massive underdog. But he's not the bottom of the barrel like some of you guys make it out to be. But nonetheless, I'm going to fight a guy who most people don't feel has a snowball's chance in hell to beat me, fulfill my contract with Showtime, and now possibly renegotiate. Because that 50th fight, that 51st fight, 52nd fight, especially the 50th, because that's breaking Rocky Marciano's record, that's going to be worth money. And he can even go back to HBO for that particular fight. So, honestly, the more I think about it, I don't even know if I would blame Floyd. Like I said, he doesn't get the respect no ways. So, why not treat it like a business? You know what I'm saying? And at least make people pay. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to pay for this. Like, you want that 50th fight, you're going to have to come out of pocket for it. And I'm just going through the motions. Because I really got I feel Floyd feels, I think he really, even though he doesn't show it, I think he's really hurt by the fact that the boxing media and public doesn't give him any type of love. Like, I understand he trash talks and stuff. People even say dumb stuff like, oh, but he says he's TBE. It's a name. Who cares? That's what he feels. Paulie Malignaggi is the magic man. He didn't look so magical against Danny Garcia. I didn't see nothing magical about that. He didn't pull no tricks out or rabbits out the hat when he was losing every single round. Or you look at Danny Garcia, his nickname is Swift. It's a name. He doesn't look swift to me. If I'm thinking swift, I think of guys like Guillermo Rigondeaux. I could picture Guillermo Swift Rigondeaux because he's the jackal. He's light on his feet. He moves with finesse. Danny Garcia throws slow, looping, flat-footed, clubbing punches. He doesn't look swift to me. That's a name. Who cares? And the game is soft. This is the hurt business. It's a brutal sport. If he feels he's the best ever, I don't care whether you like it or dislike it or agree or not. That's his opinion. And most of the time it comes from self-belief and like proving things to yourself and stuff like that. Like me, I feel I'm the best boxing channel on YouTube. I feel I'm creative. I do different things. I take different risks. That's how you're supposed to feel. It's not being arrogant. I never said I'm better than anybody or anyone else's shit and I'm the only person that's doing something good. But you're supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to have self-pride. And Ronda Rousey just recently said, she says, I deserve to win these fights because I work harder than all these girls. She said that. And no one's really complaining and up in arms and pissed off at her for saying that. You're supposed to feel like that. When you put the work in and you create that foundation, and it's not like people like me, I don't come out the womb. These fighters don't come out the womb necessarily with the confidence like I can beat anybody. But after they keep proving and they work hard and train and work in the gym, they get to a level where they probably do feel like I'm just too smart. I'm too good. No one can beat me. You know what I mean? And people take that out contest. Muhammad Ali said he was the greatest. Here's a quote. He says, I told people I was the greatest even before I knew I was. Right? So even before he really believed he was the greatest, he was still telling people that. It's a name. Who cares if he's the best ever? That doesn't mean you have to be unrealistic. And even if he has a tough schedule, it doesn't matter. He has to still fight Triple G. Yet Triple G can fight the Martin Murrays of the world. When's Martin Murray been a champion? When has Willie Monroe been a champion? How many title shots had Curtis Stevens had? Name the last undefeated fighter that Triple G beat. I can tell you the last undefeated fighter Canelo beat. I can tell you the last undefeated fighter Mayweather beat. You know what I'm saying? So that's that pretty much wraps up this video with all these double standards, man. And the more I think about it, the more I don't even blame Floyd. Milk the game for what it's worth. You know what I mean? At least make these people pay. If they're not going to respect it,